Hey, we're going to be working on the review sheet for chapters 1 and 2. Normally in class I would go through this and discuss. There'd be some back and forth about how this is the way it is. You're going to have to save your questions for the in-between time. This will be a 2-part review. So hopefully in class I can answer your questions about the first part, which is the multiple choice and the matching. And then when we get into more of the essay questions towards the end, then we're going to do that as a separate section and we'll ask questions about that. So if you've got your review sheet and you've done that, I'd highly recommend you do it first and then check your answers, not plugging answers in simply thinking you know it because you watched the video. These are going to be your answers here. So number 1, we got J, 2 is E, 3 is K, 4A, 5B, 6H, 7 is I, 8 is F, 9 is L, 10 is C, 11 is G, and 12 is D. These are all covered in chapters 1 and 2. If you have any questions on those, let me know. The next one there we're going to be getting into is the multiple choice questions, and I might have to read those because some of these are a little more complex. So the main idea of this chapter is, and it should be, C. Individuals make choices as they use their scarce resources. So we're looking for the answer of C. That is what economics is. When economists speak of the need to economize, they are talking about getting the most from what you have, so that should be the answer B. On the third one, opportunity cost refers to the cost of goods or services as measured by what you have to give up in order to obtain what you want. Okay, opportunity cost is going to be D, what you had to give up in order to obtain what you want. Number 4, scarcity is a condition that everyone faces, so that's going to be C. All individuals and societies face that. Number 5, living at or near a subsistence level is more common in. So the students always ask me what does the word subsistence actually mean, so it's a vocab word for you, I guess. So subsistence is the absolute lowest level that you're staying alive. You're not even worried about money, you're worried about like calories. Just can I get enough food to sustain my life? So that's subsistence. And you'll find that most commonly in traditional economies. Okay, traditional economies. However, towards the end of the life of a command economy, you'll also find that as well. So you should put B, but you could make a case for C because the Soviet Union was starving, the Chinese communists were starving, North Koreans are starving today. So you could make that case right there. Number 6, a production possibilities curve. It talks about guns and butter in the book. You know, this is your opportunity cost curve, their production possibilities. But it's not just about guns and butter. It's really the opportunity cost of, the effects of scarcity and opportunity cost on society. So it's not just two things, it's actually broader than that. Okay. Number 7. Which of the following would be a good in an economic sense? It'd be a pair of scissors. Everything else on there is a service. So we're looking at B is our answer for number 7. Number 8, the price of return for the use of capital is called, well, it's called rent. Capital goods, if you remember, capital goods are things that make other goods. So if you want to borrow someone's factory, then you have to rent it. If you want some capital good like a forklift, or a backhoe or something like that, you're going to have to rent that thing in order to use it. So that's rent would be A. However, a lot of people talk about money as capital, and most businesses will say, well, in order to get this new project going, I got to raise some capital. And what they're really saying is I have to raise some money. So money is the most amazing capital good of all because it buys everything. So you could also make the case the price of return for the use of money would be interest, and that would be C. Because if you borrow some money, you have to pay interest. If you borrow a capital good, you have to pay rent. So those two things are the same. You're basically renting money, and that's what interest is. Number 9, in a command economy, goods and services are produced by, that should be C, which is an economic plan. You folks are too young to remember the Soviet Union, but they had what are called 5-year plans, and they said in the next 5 years we're going to produce so many tractors and so much wheat and so much grain, and that would be their economic plan. So most of the time when you see governments coming out with like, this is our economic plan, you want to think communism. One of the states that still uses economic plans in this way, and they do it in 5-year increments, is the Department of Education for the state of Oregon. Okay? That should tell you something. All right. Number 10 there. Individuals and businesses have the greatest say about what is produced in a market economy. So that's going to be A. That's right there. Okay. A market exists where buyers and sellers exchange goods and services. That should be D. 11 is D. So wherever you come together, that is a market. A supermarket, buyers and sellers come together to exchange things. A stock market is the same place. A black market is still a market. Buyers and sellers come together to exchange goods and services. The special role of the profit motive in a market economy is A. It drives sellers to produce what buyers want. Okay? Those businesses will do whatever you want as long as you give them the money. Number 13. In this country, goods and services are produced much the same way as long as anyone can remember. That's got to be traditional, so that's B. Right there. Okay. In another country, privately owned business firms can produce goods or services in any lawful manner they choose. And number 14, this is going to be a mixed economy. It is going to be D. And the reason for this is it says in any lawful manner. If they took out that word, they simply produced in any way, shape, or form. That's a pure market economy. But as soon as you start putting laws in there to start restricting how the market can operate, it becomes a mixed economy. It's a very free mixed economy, but it's still mixed. All right. Number 15. About 100 years ago, a famous economist proposed a theory that linked unemployment with sunspots. This theory is an example of, and the answer here is D again. It is an economic model. It is a bad economic model, but it is still an economic model. So don't get thrown off with the idea that because it's bad, there's no option here. Number 16, the mythical nation of Swat produces fishing rods and reels. All its factories are fully employed. The Sultan of Swat would like to produce more rods. What advice would you give him? Well, this is the classic production possibilities curve. If you want more of one thing, you got to give up some of the other because you don't have any more resources. So it's got to be A, reduce the production of fishing reels. Okay, so 16 is A. And finally, our last one, 17, which is not in the book, a modern-day physiocrat. I'll just give you this one. It's D. The government should leave business alone and let the market determine what goods and services are produced. So these days they're called libertarians, okay, instead of physiocrats. They're just saying, leave us alone. We want to produce and buy and sell and exchange. The government needs to get out of the market. So that's number 17. If you turn over to the next page there, you're going to see where it says questions for economic reasoning and discussion. I want you to turn these in to me yourself. I want to see what your thoughts are. I've already done number 2 on one of the videos, so hopefully you'll go back and see that, and you can help figure it out. All right? If we continue to turn over, we're going to come to this page where it says guns and butter, and what you have here is a production possibilities curve. So if I go over to the other side here, and you've got your production possibilities curve drawn out right there, we're going to take a look. The first question says, what is the maximum quantity of butter that can be produced in Economania in a single year? Well, the maximum amount of butter is 15. So right there is 15. I'm making no guns. I'm putting all my resources into butter. I can get 15. And if you look at here, this is our limit, our production possibilities curve. That's the limit of all of our land, labor, and capital. That's the limit of our resources that we have. So we can get 15,000 tons of butter if we put everyone and everything making butter. Question number 2. If Economania produces 6,000 tons of butter, how many guns can it produce? So if we produce 6,000 tons of butter, how many guns can we produce? And it turns out the answer is 5,000. Now you need to understand, that on graphs like this, if we're at a number, we go straight across until we hit the curve, and then we go straight down. We don't wobble all over the place and pick a random number. Okay? We should have done this in math class, but it starts at the 6 here. If we produce 6, how many more resources are left over? It turns out it is 5,000 guns. Now it asks you the money question. What is the opportunity cost in guns if we produce 6,000 tons of butter? All right. So if we produce 6,000 tons, we can get 6,000 tons of butter, we get 5,000 guns. What is our opportunity cost for the choice of making 6,000 tons of butter? And you have to remember, opportunity cost is what did you give up in order to get the thing you want. So remember, our choice was to choose to produce 6,000 tons of butter, which means we're losing something when it comes towards guns. So you should be thinking the opportunity cost is 1,000 guns. This area right here. Because if we produce everything in guns, we get 6,000 guns. If we choose then to produce butter, when that comes up, we're going to lose some of our guns because we can't produce as much. So our resources go into butter. We've now had an opportunity cost of 1,000 guns. We could have produced 6. Now we can only produce 5. All right, number 4 there. What information is missing in this graph? What would you need before deciding on the best production combination? These are your possible choices. This is your production possibilities curve. You can produce anywhere on this line. What's the right one? We don't know. We need more information. Are we starving? Then we should probably produce more butter. Are we being invaded? Then we should probably produce more guns and just tighten our belts and say, well, we don't have time for food. We got to survive with weapons first. Okay, so are we at war? Are we hungry? What's the demand? What's the supply? We don't know those things. Those are the questions we'd have to ask. So what's the right point on here? That's a social question that you would figure out in your political class. That's not an economics question. All right. If we turn over to the back here, we're going to do one more, and that is for the next video. So going on to this section of the worksheet, we're going to go right there and do that next.